Welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. My name is Danny Burke, and a little while ago, guys, I did this video right up here where I talked about lies we learned in school. Now, you guys seem to really enjoy it. It was very popular, and it seems that there are plenty more misconceptions and half-truths out there that were taught to a lot of us, so we needed to do another video. This is the top 10 lies we learned in school, part 2. Starting off at number 10, Vikings had horned helmets. You open up most history textbooks around the world and flick to the chapter about the Vikings, and there is a pretty good chance it's going to have a picture like this, a fearsome looking warrior with horns on his helmet. But to this day, archaeologists have never found a single Viking helmet that looks like this, anywhere at all. This myth all seems to have started in the 1800s when artists started to portray the Vikings with horned helmets based off Greek and Roman accounts of Northern Europeans wearing them, except that was hundreds of years before the Vikings came along. Somehow though, this whole myth stuck. Maybe because it's pretty cool to see them look like that, but also so that you do know the chapter you're reading is talking about Vikings. Moving on to number 9, how many wives did King Henry VIII have? If you said 6, I would have agreed with you too, just a few hours ago. But we were all taught this, but it's not technically true. His 4th marriage was annulled, which meant it technically never happened because they didn't consummate it. His 2nd marriage was declared illegal because he was still married to his 1st wife. So, in order to get around this, he declared his 1st marriage was also illegal too. And then he did the same thing with his 5th wife. This leaves just 2 wives left. And if you're stuck trying to remember that, then just think Henry VIII minus 6 original, oh wait, it'd be the other way around, wouldn't it? Henry VIII minus 6 original wives equals 2 real wives. I should be a teacher. At number 8, you must drink 8 glasses of water a day. Around the world, school kids have been taught about how to look after their bodies, and one myth that seems to get absolutely everywhere is needing 8 glasses of water every single day. We've all heard that one growing up. Well, the truth is, there is no real hard evidence to actually back this one up. No single scientific study has ever found or even claimed that drinking this much water is necessary. It's just one of those things that seem to spread around. And you guys might be thinking, well, if it's not 8 glasses a day, then how much water should we be drinking? Well, the truth is, nature has already given us a very sensitive tool to measure when we need water. It's called thirst. The general rule here is, as long as you drink water when you're thirsty, you'll be absolutely fine. Coming in number 7, we have primary colours. Now, I remember being at school and being told that the primary colours of red, blue and yellow can't be made by mixing other colours together. And also, I was taught that you can make every single other colour on the spectrum by mixing them together. Well, that's simply not true. You can make them by mixing together cyan, magenta and yellow. In fact, mixing these can often create even more colours that you couldn't produce with red, yellow and blue. Now, colour experts have known about this for well over 100 years, but for some reason it got a bit lost in translation when it got passed onto schools. But if you are in any doubt at all, look at the printer cartridges that are inside printers and see what 3 colours they use to make every other colour you print out. Next up at number 6, Abraham Lincoln was a slavery abolitionist. This is the idea that Abraham Lincoln was the lone voice calling out for an end to slavery above all else. It's well known, but it might not have been totally true. He did not actually call for the immediate end of slavery in the US. This didn't mean he supported it by any means, but his main goal above everything was to keep the young Union of the United States together as one country and not be torn apart over the issue of slavery. He once said, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do it." Now, after the Civil War that followed, Lincoln did become a supporter of black suffrage, but as he said himself, if there was a way to keep slavery and save the Union from civil war, he would have chosen it. Coming in number 5, the American flag has 13 stripes to represent the original 13 colonies. Now, if you didn't go to school in America like me, you probably weren't even taught this at all, but a lot of American school kids have been. Technically though, there were only 12 founding colonies of the United States that rebelled against the British Empire. Delaware was not a colony at that time. It was actually part of Pennsylvania until it declared its own independence on June 15th, 1776. So, to summarize, that was independence from a colony declaring independence with with other colonies from another country. You follow? I don't. I should be a teacher. Moving on to the number 4 spot. There is no gravity in space. This one seems obvious, right? The reason astronauts float around up there is because there's no gravity. But there is. There's gravity everywhere. It's what keeps the moon orbiting the Earth and the Earth orbiting the sun, and it even affects astronauts too. The reason they have the appearance of weightlessness is because them and the space station they are on are actually in free fall towards the Earth. But they never actually hit the Earth because of the speed they are going at. They essentially keep constantly missing it and going around and around. The astronauts have the same acceleration as the space station, so they feel and they look weightless. It's basically like a big version of when a roller coaster throws you out of your seat for a moment and you kind of feel like you're floating for that second. I love that feeling. Right here. Next up at number 3, we only use 10% of our brains. Have you heard this one before? I spent most of my life believing this one, and a lot of you guys might have too. Apparently 90% of the brain has just been untapped potential the whole time. And if we could only access it, we would become these super intelligent beings. Yeah, well, that's not true. We use all of our brains, the full 100%. Brain scans show that all areas of the brain are always active, and there's also the fact that the brain is a huge drain on your body's energy. It makes up just 2% of your total weight, but needs 20% of your energy. Now this would be a huge waste of energy if you weren't using 90% of it. Scientists have spent so many years mapping out what every part of your brain does, and they haven't found any part that does nothing. This all came from a misconception of a study back in the 1930s where neurologists couldn't figure out what some parts of the brain did, and somehow people thought that meant they didn't do anything at all. But now we know they do, and I could go on, but my brain is starting to hurt, all 10% of it. In at the number 2 spot, deoxygenated blood is blue. Now this is something I remember distinctly being told as a kid, and I, like many of you, then asked the question, if blood with no oxygen is blue, then why does it still look red when it comes out of you? And your teacher might well have said, well that's because it reacts with the oxygen in the air. None of that is true. Your blood is always red. The reason it looks blue is actually a trick of the light. When light hits your skin, your body is very good at absorbing any red light on the spectrum. That light doesn't bounce back, and so you don't see the red color. But it's not very good at absorbing blue light in the spectrum. So that light actually gets reflected right back at you and into your eyes, giving the appearance that your blood is blue. But if you've gone through all of that and your blood is still legitimately blue, then yeah, go to the hospital. I'm not a doctor, but your blood shouldn't be blue. And finally, at number 1, chameleons change their color for camouflage. Now I put this at number 1 because just there, I bet most of you guys were like, what? But that's obviously true, right? How can that be false? Well, it's actually all to do with what mood they are in. Chameleons will change color many times in the same single spot if they are frightened or looking for a mate or even ready to fight a rival. It's essentially a form of communication to other chameleons. They may also change their color to help themselves warm up, but yeah, it's got nothing to do with camouflage at all. They are known as apex predators, which means nothing eats them, so they really don't have any reason to hide and blend into the background. Alright, that was 10 more lies we learned in school. Now like I said at the start of this guys, they might not be true, but that doesn't mean that whoever said them to you was trying to mislead you in any way. We're all still learning as we go. There's a lot still to understand about the universe, but we are tackling it one video at a time here on Most Amazing Top 10. My name is Danny Burke, and I'll see all you guys in the next one.